Dear chess friends, welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to a truly remarkable gameplay by the latest version of Stockfish, the powerful Stockfish 16. Today we see the fish battling it out against another top engine Seer in an incredible London system chess game, and this game I would dare to say, without overhyping, that this was one of the greatest chess games that I've seen in my life. This game had really everything. First of all, great opening theory, then cool middle game tactics, very immortal tactical sequences, but also great defensive strategies by Black, which was also incredible how Seer in the beginning defended this brutal and spectacular attack by Stockfish, but then later it was simply an immortal, an incredible and spectacular chess endgame with opposite color bishops on the board. In my opinion, as I said, simply one of the greatest chess games that I've seen in my life. So I will announce you also here that this game lasted for 145 moves. I'm sorry about that, but this game has to be seen, although it's a longer one. I think this was really crazy what happened between these two top engines. So let's see now what happened. With the white pieces, the fish opened with the move d4. Seer's response was knight to f6. We have now the accelerated London system with the move bishop to f4, and now here we have the Perth or maybe the King's Indian structure with the move d6. We have knight to f3, g6. The game transposes now into the London system against sort of a King's Indian setup. After g6, e3, bishop to g7, h3, always leaving of course a square for the dark square bishop. Common idea in the London system, of course. If knight to h5 happens, then we can retreat with our bishop to h2. Kingside castling, bishop to e2, normal development, c5, c3. As usual, of course, white builds this beautiful structure, builds, of course, this powerful setup in the center of the board. The good side is, of course, that the bishop is already out, so this bishop is not locked, so now it's outside of the pawn chain, so it's still a good piece here on this diagonal. We have b6 by Seer, we have a4, controlling in some lines a6, b5, because black would love to make progress with a6, b5, maybe then also to break and enter with the move b4. Maybe black can make that happen, but at least you're making his life harder on the queen side by playing first of all the move a4. Now comes a6, kingside castling, knight to d7, knight to d2, and now after bishop to b7, rook to e1. So still pretty standard stuff. Many great games have been played already in this setup. Rook to e8 here, played by the Seer engine in some lines, preparing also to break and enter with the move e5. Here Stockfish plays bishop to g3. If you play, as we said, knight to h5, still we have this beautiful square in order to escape with the knight. Here in the game, after bishop to g3 by the fish, d5 was played by Seer. If you play e5, I think this could be still very risky, because after d takes e5, bishop to c4, you may be attacking the bishop, but now we can put more pressure here even against this pawn on f7. We don't care about this pawn so far. Then also in some lines, knight to g5 could be very dangerous, rook to d1, attacking the queen. So it becomes really uncomfortable, I think, to play now the game with the black pieces, especially because of this beautiful queen and bishop's activity. So after move bishop to g3, as we said, d5 was played by Seer with the preparation to maybe fix the structure and lock the center by playing the move knight to e4. Stockfish plays knight to e5. If you play knight takes e5 here, then d takes e5 leads into complications. After e6, this chain could be broken now. After a couple more moves, look at this. This could be also very dangerous attack then to handle for black. As I said, playable, but also quite risky here for black to go into the structure. So after move knight to e5, that's where Seer fixed now first the structure with the move e6, and Stockfish cements further the knight with the move f4, c4. So far it's a positional struggle, it's a positional battle, but now slowly and surely this fun will really start here in this game. After move h4, we have h5. Here Seer is not allowing further progressive ideas by white to push the pawn on h5 himself. So now h5, a beautiful blocking move. Bishop to f2. Stockfish still attacks the king side, is preparing now the move g4. We have now finally the move b5, king to h1, queen to e7, and now g4. Knight takes g4, bishop to g4, h takes g4, queen to g4. So you see now, although black is continuing now the game with the bishop pair on the board, still the light square bishop is not so good. It's paralyzed by its own pawn structure. We have to say it also, white's dark square bishop is not in optimal shape, because so far it's also blocked out by its own pawns, but the knights are very, very useful here. They're tricky. They can, of course, always change the direction. They can maybe find at least some kind of a good square in the continuation of the game. After queen to g4, knight to f6 by Seer, controlling again the h5 square. Stockfish continues with queen to h3, knight to h5, rook to g1. We have b takes a4, rook to g5. Stockfish continues now the pressure here on the g file. f6 is of course not possible because of knight to g6. After rook to g5, we have bishop to f6, and now Stockfish starts the tactical sequence with an amazing rook takes h5. Sacrifices first the rook for the exchange. Opens now the g file, rook to g1. Very important follow-up. We have bishop to g7. The problem is now you cannot play something like king to h7, because then after knight to f3, knight to g5, this could be very risky. The h5 is then weak. If we get, of course, the queen on h5, then this game could be very soon over here for black. So after rook to g1, that's why bishop to g7, knight to f1 with the preparation to continue the pressure against the weak pawn on h5. We have king to h7, queen to f3, rook to h8, and now knight, rook to g2. Simply staying on the g file, but also in some lines protecting now the weak pawn on b2. The only counterplay that I see here is maybe by black to somehow take out the b2 pawn and maybe trade off the rooks or something, at least create some kind of a damage on this side of the board. So rook to g2, a calm but really, really spectacular move here by Stockfish 16. So after rook from the g2, rook from a to e8 was played by the Seer engine. Stockfish continues with knight to g3, hitting simply the weak pawn on h5. You could of course also take immediately, but then after king to g7, after queen to h5, then the g file is open. Then there are of course several tactical threats here also by the rook against white's king. So that's why Stockfish is not rushing. Plays first of all knight to g3, f5, queen to e2, we have a5, queen to d1, bishop to c8, and now e4. This was really the first really spectacular stunner of this game. e4 breaks simply here the position in the center of the board. Let's see the obvious moves which were not played in the continuation of the game. Here, if you play f takes e4, this wouldn't be good. Then king to g1 simply gets out of this mess on the h file. You're trying maybe to escape. Now look at this, knight to h5, still with the pressure against the bishop on g7. You have to play something like rook to h7. Look at this, white is continuing simply the attacking flow. Knight to g6, you have to play queen to f7. Then look at this, we simply push further. We're simply paralyzing now black here towards the corner. Here black is really cornered. Look at this, really cramped, really strange position, defensive setup here. After rook to g5, I think this could be very tough to handle. The queen could be included, and afterwards we can also still play knight to e5 in some lines. So really messed up game. The only bad thing is maybe still the bishop, but maybe later it can be also somehow included into the attack. If you play here d takes e4 instead of f takes e4, then the follow-up is d5. Look at this, crazy stuff. If you pick up now the piece, then queen to h5, look at this, knight to f5 again. It's a devastating position here to handle now for black. So as I said, after move e4, you cannot pick up now here the pawn. You have to first do something else. So that's why the Seer engine got out of this mess, got out of the g file attack by the rook against the bishop. We have queen to h5, rook to g8, knight to f7, simply continuing the pressure against this bishop on f6. Queen to f6 has to be played in order to defend its position. We have knight to g5, king to h8, knight to f7, a couple of perpetuals, but finally e5 was played by Stockfish 16. Kicking away the queen has to go now to g6, again a new check, again a couple of perpetuals, but now Stockfish here simply retreated to e2. The problem again for black is here that you cannot get rid of this annoying knight on g5. If you play that, then f takes g5 is going to happen. You have to play f4. Look at this, knight to h5, knight to f6 is going to happen. Then we simply push the pawn further. So these two connected passports, I think, are simply unstoppable here for black in the continuation. That's why after queen to e2, rook from e to f8 was played, and now knight to h5 anyway, with the preparation again to cement the position around the square f6. We have bishop to g7, but Stockfish plays now knight to f6 anyway. After bishop to f6, e takes f6. If you play rook to f6, then look at this, h5 was played by Stockfish. Really Stockfish is continuing really the attacking flow, but still we have to say it, Seer played here a decent defense, still is up the exchange, so if you don't make anything out of this attack is splashed, then maybe black can reach the fully endgame stage. And of course, with a rook versus maybe a bishop or a knight, this could be then a winning continuation for black. So after h5, we have queen to g7, queen to e5, bishop to d7, we have bishop to h4, Stockfish finally includes now the bishop into the game, and now bishop to e8. Here, the Seer engine is also going for the h5 pawn. We have knight to f7, spectacular move, the check and also attack against the queen, so that's why I have to play queen to f7, bishop to f6, we have rook to h7, and it seems so that Seer has defended this, because look at this, we have now opposite color bishops. Okay, you have the h5 pawn, and still we have maybe some kind of a chance here. So it's always tough, even if you maybe have better activity, even if you have maybe a better coordination of your pieces. It's very hard, I think, to win this kind of an endgame, because Seer gave up back material and now hopes for a draw. Is of course trying still somehow to defend his position. So after king to h7, we have bishop to g5. You cannot of course play queen to h5, rook to h2 is simply winning the game. So after bishop to g5, rook to h8, we have rook to h2, and now bishop to d7, simply going here towards the queen side. Stockfish continues with king to g2, simply improves the position of the king, gets also out of the potential mess here on the h file. We have king to g2, rook to g8, Stockfish gets closer with the king, rook to g7, rook to g2, we have queen to f8, queen to c7, still very, very dangerous. So bishop to e8, we have queen to e5, bishop to d7, king to f2. Stockfish is not rushing, keeps first of all the activity. We have queen to f7, and now king to g1. We have queen to f8, king to h1. So it seems so that this could really end with a draw. But now after king to h2, rook to g7, Stockfish again goes with the king, and now here the Seer engine makes a huge decision with the move a3. What should white do? Here Stockfish accepted the challenge, played b takes a3, but now after queen to a3, Stockfish plays a beautiful h6. The problem is now you don't have time to pick up the pawn on c3. It comes of course with a check, but now we simply get our king to h2, and wherever you go, if you go to g6, then we have this one. Queen to c7 is simply winning the game on spot. Here the bishop cannot move. Then maybe can try queen to d4, but we'll simply pick it up, and I think this is nothing that black can defend anymore. It's game over here for black for sure. So you could maybe try here to play rook to g8 after this attack by the pawn, but still it's very risky. Queen to f6, then you're trying maybe to get the queen back into the game with a little check. Look at this, bishop to f6, and again the game is over here for black for sure. So you see, after move h6 that Stockfish played, you don't have time to pick up now the pawn on c3. Tricky ideas here by Stockfish. After h6, rook to f7, we have bishop to h4, we have queen to f8. Finally, here the Seer engine is retreating with the queen. Again, you cannot pick up the pawn instead of queen to f8, because you get this one, queen to h8, you have to cover. Now we deliver a new check, and after queen to g5, this would be again a spectacular and beautiful checkmate by the queen's activity. So this is not working. So that's why queen to f8 must move here for the Seer engine. After rook queen to f8, here Stockfish continues now with the move queen to e2, and again, what should black do? Now we're really in the fully endgame stage, and Stockfish plays now an Immortal Zugzwang. This is really tricky endgame that Stockfish is starting now, because the bishop here on d7 is connected of course to the pawn on e6, and let's see what happens if you maybe stay with your bishop here and just start to push the pawn. If you play a4, then we play king to h3. You cannot actually pick up here the pawn on h6, because you get this one, rook to g5, here with the threat of rook to h5. Basically this rook is standing in the way. We don't have a control of the h5 square, because we cannot place our bishop on e8. Even if you try here instead of queen to h6, bishop to e8 now, then we simply take out again the pawn on e6, and again it's very tricky. You try maybe rook to h7, then we get the queen here, then we attack the rook, you have to step back, then we play something like this, then the queen is again coming into the game, we'll play bishop to g5. Maybe this was one of the ways to go, but as I said, it's very hard to defend everything, because the king is really exposed here. The rook and the queen are always stuck to the defense of the king, so still a tricky position. So as I said, after move a4, king to h3, what you could play here is maybe here bishop to c8, in getting out of this mess and still controlling the e6 square. But then again, queen to h5, very dangerous. Then we get the queen on g6. You're starting to push the pawn. We create a blockade. Then king to h2. we simply pick up the pawn. Look at this, we wait a little bit, and then if you pick up now this one, bishop to f6 in some lines is also here immediate winning. So that's the problem, I think, of this particular endgame. After queen to e2, the queen and the rook are always stuck to the defense of the king. That's not the most important thing. So that's why here the forcing move here even by black is simply to play bishop to b5, but of course it leaves now Stockfish the opportunity to pick up now the pawn on e6. Even if you play here king to h6, this is not working because look at this, bishop to g5, then queen is coming, again a discovered check, and now we simply pick up again the piece, rook to king to f2, opening up the g file. So this is again not a position that black can defend. So as I said, this was, I think, one of the crucial moments, because I asked myself the question, why did Seer play the move bishop to b5? Why did Seer leave the protection of the e6 pawn? So whatever I try to do with the black pieces here, by using also my Stockfish engine at home, nothing worked. Basically it was still a messy position because of the simply problems. As I said, the rook and the queen are stuck simply to the defense of the king. So Stockfish accepted the challenge, picks up now the pawn on e6. We have queen to e8, queen to e5. If you play queen to e5, then of course the pawns are rolling. We have then pawns on both sides, so this could be, I think, unstoppable then. So this is also not working. So after queen to e5, here the Seer engine tried a4, normal idea, bishop to g5. Stockfish finally protects now the pawn on h6. We have bishop to d7, rook to b2, queen to e6, and now rook to b8. And after bishop to c8, now comes another stunner, a huge surprise moment for me, at least it was when I analyzed the game. Here Stockfish traded off the queens, queen to e6, and I was like, after bishop to e6, okay, this is a draw, nothing can be done. Okay, maybe white has a better activity, but this king is creating a blockade, this bishop is protecting both of these pawns. We have maybe the problem of this one, but still it can be protected with bishop to d7. So what's the issue here? Why is the Stockfish engine still evaluating this position as maybe +1 evaluation? So why is Stockfish even considering maybe this to be a winning endgame? This is really crazy. This is spectacular. We're now in move 71, and I really thought that maybe even in Grandmaster level, if someone would, I think, offer a draw here, maybe the other one would accept it for sure. I'm not sure, but as I said, this seemed to me as a completely draw position. But put your seatbelts on and enjoy how Stockfish is now playing a spectacular, beautiful, and epic chess endgame here. So after bishop to e6, here Stockfish first of all attacks now the pawn. We have bishop to d7. Stockfish keeps the pressure. Bishop to c6. So you see, these pawns are light squares. At least they can be, of course, defended by the light square bishop. King to f3, rook to b7. Now Stockfish gets simply the king closer. After king to c2, king to g6, we have rook to a8, and now Stockfish after move a3 plays king to b1. Finally, getting the king closer to the action. If rook to f5 would have been played, then of course look at this, bishop to a4 simply wins the game also for black. So black has also some chances on this side of the board. White has to be also careful in this endgame because this pawn is marching. So after move a3, here bishop to king to b1 was played, bishop to e8, king to a2, we have bishop to g6, and now rook to a8. You don't want to pick it up, of course, with the king immediately, because then you risk rook to b3. So that's why Stockfish first got the rook into the game, and is of course trying now to capture the pawn with the rook. So after bishop to f7, rook to a3, bishop to g6, and now here rook to a8. We have bishop to f7, rook to a6, bishop to e8, rook to d6, bishop to f7, rook to f6, bishop to g6, and after king to a1, now comes also really, I think, also critical moment. What should black do? If you try to stay here on the b file to cut off the king's ability to play, then white will play a couple of moves that would zugzwang you to basically get the rook out of this b file. Look at this. We play rook to d6. You have to play somewhere with the bishop or something. Then we again attack the bishop. You have to cover it with a knight. And now we're trying, of course, to get the king closer. You have to stay on the b file. Now we simply push the pawn, and that's the issue. h7 is also very tricky because now you have to step back from the defense of the bishop. So you have to also stay here on the 8th rank in order to protect the potential promotion. That's now also the issue here. So that's the problem, I think, now in this particular endgame, that the rook is always stuck to the defense, at least of the 8th rank, 7th rank, or the 6th rank. The rook has to always protect this area because the white's rook is very, very active. But the rook has also to protect this potential file. So as I said, Stockfish will have always the opportunity to Zugzwang him, to force to make a move, and then maybe he can get closer with one of those pieces. Look at this, after rook to a2, maybe rook to b6, but as we said, with h7, we're protecting everything. Now you have to go somewhere here, but again, it's a different story. Now we can get the king closer, and as I said, then it's the whole concept is simply not working here for black. So look at this. After rook to a1, that's why here rook to a7 was played by the Seer engine. Stockfish simply gets to b2. We have rook to b7, king to c2. Now rook to a7, rook to d6. We have bishop to f7, rook to d8. So Stockfish is playing tiny little improvements of the position. Is of course again trying somehow to include also the king into the game. We have rook to a2. Now a new check. Here the Seer engine is not allowing that. We have rook to a7, rook to b8, bishop to h5, and now bishop to c1. Again, tricky endgame. Look at this. Black played here to move bishop to b5, which was evaluated here as my in my Stockfish engine at home as an inaccuracy. Bishop to g4, but then again, if you let the engine run, again, the engine suggests this move. It's really hard to now basically calculate everything, but I was curious why did the Seer engine play now the move bishop to g4 instead of bishop to f7, simply staying closer to the king, which was more important. Then look at this. After bishop to f7, white will simply continue with rook to f8. You have to again stay close with your king towards to the bishop. Now we play rook to h8. Now you play a2. Now play rook to f8, rook to a7, rook to c8. We're attacking now, and now after king to b2, rook to a7. Now there is now this idea. After rook to a6, bishop to h7. Now you play bishop to d8. That's now the only plan that I saw, of course, by using my Stockfish engine at home, in which white could have some kind of a progressive plan after move bishop to f7. So bishop to d8, look at this, after rook to b7, delivering a check. You're trying maybe attack the bishop, but now we play rook to d6. And the main concept and main strategic goal is, I think, now to get the king on g5. That would be then, I think, the most important idea here, because as we said, the king is always stuck to the defense of the bishop. If you move it in some lines, then you get again this one. Maybe we can start to push the pawn. So it's very, very tricky. But now I think in this position, when the bishop is on d8 and when the rook is still protecting the h6 pawn, there is maybe this path for the king, and then if we get it to g5, this could be then maybe at least some kind of winning chance. So that was after the potential bishop to f7. So as I said, the concept is then to play bishop to d6, somehow get the rook on d6, protecting the rook is controlling the h6, and then get the king here to g5. But that was only possible because Stockfish played now this a couple of Zugzwang moves in which black was forced to make a move. You basically play a tiny little move, then of course your opponent is leaving you some gaps, leaving you some spaces. So as I said, I was really curious why in this particular position bishop to f7 was not here Seer's continuations. In the game, bishop to g4 was played by Seer, getting out of this potential attacks by the rook, but actually on this square g4, the bishop is a little bit out of game, we have to say it. I like still more maybe this choice to play bishop to f7, because at least you're keeping your chances. With the move bishop to g4 here, Stockfish sensed, of course, that the bishop is paralyzed, that it's simply out of game at least for a while, and uses now this moment and plays a brilliant rook to b1. I'm not sure how many of us would play a move like this. This seems stupid to retreat with your rook. But look at this. After bishop to f3 that the Seer engine played, Stockfish again forced him to make a move, because I was again curious what would be here again, maybe a different continuation. Instead of bishop to f3, what could you do? If you play here rook to a3 to attack the pawn, we simply attack the king, and now the pawn is marching. That's also something here that should not be forgotten. Also in some lines you could get checkmated, or maybe at least get the king on h5. So it's very, very hard, as I said, to leave this 3 ranks by the rook. Very, very tough. You can maybe always deliver check or maybe attack the pawn, but you can never really stay too long here with your rook. You have to always protect at least the 6th, 7th, or the 8th rank. What you could do here, instead of this move bishop to f3, that's a Seer engine played, you could try maybe bishop to h5 to go again bishop to f7, but now it's suddenly not working anymore. We'll simply get the king closer. We attack the bishop. You have to defend it. Now again we play rook to f6, attacking the piece. Now rook to d6. Again you have to defend it. Now we're going to get the king closer. But after king to e3, again I think we could apply this pattern with bishop to d8 and then slowly and surely get the king here on g5, at least something. So as I said, very tricky stuff. But maybe it was again time for Seer to get the bishop on h5 and then maybe to f7, at least trying to defend the position somehow. But after bishop to f3, the bishop gets more and more loose on the board, and here Stockfish uses now this moment and plays now king to d2 with the idea to play also in some moments decisive tempo against the bishop with king to e3. We have rook to a2, check, king to c1, we have rook to a7, rook to b2, we have rook to a1, Stockfish gets now king to d2, and again black is zugzwanged here. Black is running out of good moves. Look how crazy these tiny little moves were by Stockfish. What should black do again? If you try now finally to retreat to a7, then as I said, we get this extra tempo against the bishop. You're trying maybe to retreat. Now we get the king again here to g3, and now again if you step back from the defense of the 7th rank, then look at this. So after rook to a3, a very dangerous check will happen. Then rook to g7, for instance, we play rook to this one. If you play this, then bishop to f6, rook to g7, and it's then game over here for black for sure. So as I said, rook to a7 is also not the optimal. You can try maybe again here, instead of anything you can maybe bishop to h5, but again with rook to b7 it gets very dangerous. If you step back to h8, then you get the check with the bishop on f6. So here after king to d2, as I said, black is running out of good moves. The only good move that the Seer engine saw was now the move rook to h1, trying at least to control the pawn on the h file. But Stockfish, of course, delivers a check. Here we have king to g8, rook to g7. We have king to c2, rook to h2. Stockfish simply gets out with his potential checks. Gets also the king cornered on a1. We have king to g8, rook to g7, king to h8, rook to a7. We have king to g8, again a couple of perpetuals, and after rook to f7, king to g8, Stockfish plays now rook to a7, and again we have a new Zugzwang. So I think it's the 5th or 6th time that Stockfish played an Immortal Zugzwang in this particular endgame. Again, whatever black does, I think it's losing. Let's see options. In the game, bishop to f3 was played. But let's see if you play, I don't know, something like rook to f2. Then h7 is obviously winning the game because of bishop to f6. If you play rook to h3, then we simply get the king here again advanced, so we can simply attack here the b4 square, then also the c5 square. Again, black doesn't have time to pick up the pawn on c3 because of the potential threat on h7. You cannot, of course, play rook to h1 again with the same pattern. We simply play here something like this. Then we get again after bishop to f3, again the king can be included into the game. Even if you try bishop to g2, then we deliver check, and simply, as we said, we simply deliver the check. We'll simply push the pawn further. Bishop to f6 in some lines is working, so it's a devastating again position. We can always include also our king into the attack now. It's really messy game here for black for sure. If you try here king to h7, then we deliver a new check. As we said, this is now the progressive plan, getting the king closer. h7, bishop to f6, and rook to c8 is of course always the dynamic threat here by white. Very wild stuff. So after rook to a7, here by Stockfish, the Seer engine played bishop to f3. Stockfish delivers our new check. King to h8, rook to c7, king to g8, rook to g7. Again, a couple of perpetuals, and after rook to f7, an attack against the pawn on f5. Here the Seer engine played king to g8 because bishop to e4 is of course not possible anymore because of bishop to f6. Again, tiny little checks, tiny little improvements, but when the time is right, now there's always this check, and this is game over. You can play, of course, rook to g8, but now we simply push the pawn further, rook to g8, and then h8, the promotion. So this is now really the progressive plan. Really wild stuff. So rook to f7, we have king to g8, rook to f5, rook to f2, rook to e5, bishop to e4, and Stockfish has now 2 pawns on the board, which should be, I think, enough to win this beautiful chess endgame. Rook to e7, we have rook to c2, rook to g7, rook to f8, bishop to e7, another check, Stockfish pushed the pawn further. Here the Seer engine has to go now, after rook to b3, rook to a4 behind the pawn, but Stockfish is of course delivering a check, promote here to queen, and is having now a situation where Stockfish is up the exchange with same pawns on the board, but of course this is a passer, and this is now completely winning here for white. So we have here king to e6, Stockfish cuts off the king's ability to play on the 5th rank. We have bishop to f3, rook to e5, a check, Stockfish gets closer with now with the king, Stockfish cuts also behind, attacks now the bishop, the rook is coming into the game, rook to c5, not allowing of course this move to be advanced, king to e6, king to f3, rook to a5, rook, bishop to e4, and now rook to c5, c2, f5 here, bishop to d3, rook to c3, and for king to d7. In this particular position, the Seer engine resigns. So obviously we just push the pawn, get the king behind, and in one moment this is devastating because the rook can always deliver check. So it's game over here for black for sure. So really crazy game. I'm not sure what to say. This endgame was so epic, so brutal, incredible stuff by the fish in such a seemingly drawish endgame to deliver such a spectacular Zugzwang motif. Really an awesome game. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm sorry that it lasted so long, but this had to be shown because, as I said, in the beginning it seemed to me that this could be really drawish, that the Seer engine defended in the position. In the beginning we saw that Seer played the only moves that were possible in order to defend the position somehow, but this was spectacular, really from the beginning. Epic tactics, great middle game strategy, but then an immortal chess endgame. Really one of the greatest chess games that I've seen in my life. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. If you want to see more an epic and spectacular games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.